Hi guys, what a fantastic city you've got. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to come and spend some time with you guys today. My name's Chris. I've been a developer in London and more recently Dublin for about 22 years now. An architect more recently. And for about the last 10 years, I've been learning about Agile and helping teams and organizations to implement an Agile framework. And quite often, I've seen a problem emerge, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you today about, which is when companies do all of the Agile things, but they don't get the result that they were looking for. But before we get started, I know everybody's full of lunch. Hope you've had a coffee to kind of perk you up again. So a quick, just to make sure we're all awake, a quick show of hands. Put your hands up and keep your hands up if you work with teams that deliver in short iterations. Hopefully a lot of people. Okay, that's good. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. If your team includes not just developers and a QA, maybe a BA as well, but also someone from product, maybe a designer, maybe someone from UX. Oh, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. A lot of the same people. And now keep your hands up if you've ever met one of your customers. Okay, a lot of hands go down. A lot of new hands come up. Are those people that didn't have their hands up before and have met their customers? What roles do you do? Are you like business analysts? Do you work on the product side, design side? Okay, so you are all still asleep. That's good. One of the things that I notice about companies where this problem happens is that there's a culture of blame sometimes. I like this cartoon. It's funny because it's true. So here we have this guy. I think his name is just Pointy Haired Boss, and he's coming to Dilbert and he's saying that the CEO blamed sales for the poor performance, and sales blamed marketing, and marketing blamed engineering, and now Pointy Haired Boss is here to blame Dilbert. He's obviously pretty hopeful. He thinks his boss is going to shield him from unfair accusations. We all know that's not going to happen. But I do work for a company where this kind of thing happens, and I don't want to suggest it's just that company, because it's not the first time I've seen it, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Like many businesses, it has its problems. And like many businesses, it likes to blame technology for as many of those problems as possible. Let's have a look at what some of those problems might be. Product is late to market. Right? A lot of companies have that problem. What do a lot of companies do? Blame technology. Next problem. The product has quality issues. Again, probably familiar to some of you guys in the room. It's a problem that you've seen before. What does the business like to do? Blame technology. The printer's on fire. Hopefully, not many of you have seen that problem. But I'm sure that if it did happen, people would blame technology. So an Agile consultant coming into a company, seeing at least two of those problems, might recommend an Agile framework, something like Scrum. Scrum promises to deliver value early, so the product can't be late to market anymore. Scrum says that quality is not negotiable, so we can't have quality issues anymore. We should start using Scrum, and then all the business's problems will be fixed, right? So, as happens with many technology teams in many other companies, we adopted an Agile framework, and for us, depending on how the work arrived, it might have been something like Kanban. Remember, guys, it's not Kanban if you don't have a WIP limit. But for us, for most of my teams, it was Scrum. And we adopted that. Just like normal, IT adopts change all the time. Technology is very good at adopting change, new languages, new frameworks, new syntaxes come along, and we just adopt that and move on. So we deliver value in iterations. We do retrospectives. Hands up, who loves a retrospective? There's at least 3 people. We do sprint planning. We do refinement. We do all the ceremonies. We do Scrum. So we're Agile, right? No. No. And you might say, how do we know this? Right. Well, because I'm an architect, I'm lucky enough that I'm on the boundary between 2 worlds. And I can see clearly into both of them. One of those worlds is the rest of the business. In the company I work for now, the business say that they need to. I think they probably just want to sign off on a project before we can start work. The product team needs to approve that the solution is correct. The UX team need to approve that the design is correct. Security, finance, everybody wants to know the boundaries of this project, what it's going to do, what it's not going to do. So pretty much every year I have to work with the delivery managers to submit to the business something called a business case. You might not have come across a business case yet in your careers. Consider yourself lucky if you haven't. It's a document that sets out all the different parts of the project. Like I said, the design, the user experience, the solution itself. But that's a problem. Because in the business case, scope is fixed. The cost of the project is fixed. The design is fixed. Which means that really the only thing that's negotiable is quality. Now I know what you're thinking here. This is a disaster. Well, it's worse than that. It's a complete disaster. But I can't tell the teams that, because that would break the illusion of the teams that we're doing Agile. Over here on one side, I've got the teams that I work with. We develop a product where we feel the requirements are emergent and design is flexible, scope is negotiable, and quality is fixed. Over here on the other side, we have the smouldering remains of the business case, where design is fixed, scope is fixed, and quality is negotiable. It's completely the opposite. And here's me, stuck in the middle. So I get a very good view of the 2 very different product methodologies that we're using. There are only a small number, at least in the company that I work in, there's only a small number of people that have that view. The architects, maybe the software delivery managers. People tend to either be over here on the business side, thinking about product, thinking about design, or they tend to be over here where they're doing sprint planning and thinking that they're working on requirements that are emergent. With technology using one framework, one product delivery framework, and the rest of the organization using whatever came before, it might be waterfall, chaos, whatever. We're ultimately trying to deliver a product using two different product delivery methodologies. And I don't know what you guys think. Hands up if you think that's a good idea. Oh, no one. I think we'd be better off picking one of those and going with that, rather than thinking that the best solution is using both. So we said at the start that the talk is about companies that do all the agile things, but never really get the agility they're looking for. What does that mean? Well, the aim, I think, generally of the companies, particularly the companies that I've worked for, is to tame the unicorn that is business agility. Now, everybody in the room, I'm sure, knows that a unicorn is untamable. According to legend, some companies do get close. And for those companies that get close, they tend to be companies who are close to their customers, so that they understand their customers' problems, and to a degree where they can innovate solutions. Our customers want to be surprised and delighted by our products, as Mary Poppendix says. We don't want to be delivering stuff that's ordinary, that's run-of-the-mill, or even worse, something that's worse than our competitors. Even more than that, when our customers' requirements change, if you're really close to your customer, you find out because they tell you, because they're sat right there. And to kind of summarize that, I like to use the term customer alignment. I think that kind of that two-word phrase really kind of pulls all those things together. You want to deliver products that don't just solve the customer's problems today, but go on to solve the customer's problems in the future as that problem set changes, as the market forces change. And if we're going to deliver a product that does all of that, we're going to need different teams. We're going to need to make teams that can design, develop, deliver, market, and sell our product through its whole lifetime. We need truly cross-functional teams. So instead of building teams based on similar skill sets, horizontal slices through our organization, we need to start building teams using vertical slices through the organization. Teams that, led by their relationship with the customer, can innovate around problems and almost deliver anything. So is that it? If we build cross-functional teams, we develop a strong relationship with the customer because we've got people at the top of finance, sales, marketing, people that are talking to the customer all the time. That's it, we're done. We can just do anything then? No. Because now the light is back on technology. Now we need to be able to do something with our technology that we've never done before. Now our code has to be able to evolve as the customer requirements change. And given that we've just built a whole structure around bringing those customers closer to us, that change is going to come faster than it ever did before. And as software developers, software engineers, teams that work with developers, we need to be ready. So there have been 2 times in my career, you're missing the best bit. 2 times in my career when I felt like I was super productive. The first time it was because I was part of a team, and all the other developers on the team were awesome software engineers. They were craftsmen. The second time it was because I was sat right across the desk from my customer. She was 3 feet away. And as I said, when you're that close, requirements are truly emergent. You can do product demos, feature demos, 3, 4, 10 times a day. And that leads to a lot of change at the product level, and change has a major consequence. The thing that we need to recognize about change is that it's probably our industry's biggest trigger for unplanned outages. We want our customer experience to be great, or at least better than the competition. But we know, don't we, that every time we introduce new features, that's a potential source of bugs and downtime. So change introduces downtime unless we mitigate with a strategy like blue-green. Everybody know what blue-green is? It's a near zero downtime deployment strategy where you have 2 sets of servers that can possibly be live, and you can deploy to either one of those. I used to say it was zero downtime, but then the guys that I work with in my current company, they told me that was impossible, so I should stop saying that. So now I say near zero downtime, which apparently is good enough. They're happy with that. Change introduces bugs unless we mitigate with an automated quality strategy. And change introduces the opportunity for manual error unless we mitigate that with an automated deployment strategy. So about 5 years ago, I went to Berlin to visit a company that had just been acquired. I was there to help them with their DevOps. They had a successful micro-lending business in Germany, but I was there to help them really with some of their deployment issues, some of their downtime issues. So when I got there, there was one guy that tended to do all of their releases, and when I said to him, you know, what does your deployment look like? He said, oh yeah, it's great, it's manual. Hold on. Which one is it, great or manual? It was slightly awkward because this was this guy's world. Right? This is where he lived. He was the only guy in the office that could deploy the software, so he quite liked the system that he'd built. So I tried to swallow my criticism and said, look, yeah, just talk me through it. Okay, so it's 15 stages, he said. Is that all? Step 1 is check the new source code out of Git. Step 2, connect to the target server. Step 3, copy the code across to the target server. Step 4, bring up the maintenance page on the website. And so on. On it went. And so this guy, he knew the steps inside out. He didn't have to refer to any notes. He could just tell me. He'd done it that often. But when I said to him, so doesn't that ever go wrong? Like, I appreciate, you do this all the time and you're good at it, but this is a manual. Surely sometimes. Oh yeah, he said, it goes wrong all the time. Good. The thing that goes wrong most often, step number 1. He forgets to check the new code out of source control. So I said, hang on, when do you do that? You don't have anything like blue-green. Oh no, I do this at 2 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday when we know, because we've got instrumentation built in, we know that our site's traffic is. So, and how long does it take? Well, it's about an hour, maybe a bit longer sometimes. So you spend an hour at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, and a lot of the time you're deploying the old site over itself because you forgot to check out the new code. Yeah. It didn't seem to be a problem. And yeah, it would have been very easily solved. What he didn't realise, he thought he was doing a great job. And to be fair, they'd built a successful microlending business, despite this guy regularly deploying the site over the top of itself. What he didn't realise was that he was stopping his company from taming that unicorn. I'm sure everybody here has experienced downtime in your product because of new releases. We need to mitigate for those. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. If we don't mitigate for the risks that come along with making changes, we risk failure when we're releasing changes very often. Hands up, anybody that's got a DevOps background? Oh, good. Some people, good. So you probably recognize the things that I've just described. Automated quality strategy, automated deployment. They should all sound very familiar. So because we've created a situation where we're inviting change, where change happens often, and we realize that change can be a source of disruption and bugs, DevOps is key to taming the unicorn. I'm not saying it's a magic bullet. What I'm saying is it has to be there. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. The other thing that technology has to deliver is a code base that can be extended, maintained and improved with confidence through the lifetime of the product. Does anybody know how old is the oldest software product at the moment? I didn't know, so it's hard to tell. Applications like Word and Excel were some of the first widely used business software, along with Lotus Notes. IBM Notes is the new name for Lotus Notes, just the same thing. It's still sold today, 29 years after its first release. That sounds like a long time. Until you realise that Microsoft Word was first released in 1983. It's 35 years old. And that's what it looked like. First Microsoft Word. That's what computers looked like when Microsoft Word was first released. When you think about writing software that has to absorb and change to accommodate all of the different requirements that come up during a 35-year lifespan, you kind of wonder how much of that original code is still there. I'm not sure that I'd like to write some code knowing that it had to live for 35 years. But complete rewrites are expensive and involve a lot of chance that we'll introduce bugs and exactly the kind of disruption that we were just talking about. And on top of that, if your application has a database and you do a rewrite, well, then are you looking at a data migration? Data migrations are horrible animals. I was lucky enough to work at a successful startup in London, the fintech sector. We decided to rewrite the platform that had built the business in the UK. And the new solution was great. We used it to expand internationally, Canada, Poland, South Africa. I think it was 4 years until we were able to move the UK business onto that platform. And that was entirely because of the data migration. It's horrible. I can't tell you how bad they are. And it's hard to do a software rewrite without also doing that. So the more we can do to write our code so that it can last the length of our product and avoid the rewrite, the better. One of the things that can help us there is code craftsmanship. So the code craftsmanship movement, described very well by Robert C. Martin, explains kind of all the behaviors that we as technologists can use to write code that can live a long time. In fact, all the things that we can do to put off that expensive and complicated rewrite for as long as possible. Has anybody read the book? Okay, yeah, a few people. Good. I work with some of the developers at work, and occasionally they come to me and say, what can I do to improve my game, to get to the next level, to make more money? That's what they're asking me. What can I do to make more money? And every time I point them at this, because this changes the way that you approach code. Almost anybody probably can write code that is functional. If you're given clear enough requirements, you can learn a language, you can sit down and you can write code that is functional. And I guess that's the first delivery of any code. It's got to work, right? That's the primary function of the code. But what the clean code movement tries to do, or at least what I took from it, is something over and above writing functional code. It's writing maintainable code. Code that is both functional and maintainable. It's the acceptance that your code is going to last, it's going to live on, probably for a long time, longer than you're going to be a developer, or at least a developer in that team. And a focus on writing code that a new developer coming into the team, maybe someone junior, can look at that code and see with confidence exactly what it does. Because they're going to need to change it, right? They're going to need to change your code. They're going to need to adapt it. You want somebody to be able to come and look at it and say, yeah, I know exactly what this does. I can change it with confidence. I'm pretty sure there aren't going to be any unforeseen errors. I'm pretty sure through this change, I'm not going to introduce any bugs. So, by building a combination of DevOps and code craftsmanship into our culture, we can deliver technology that supports an ever-evolving, long-lived product that can keep up with the changing market conditions of our customers. catch up. So if we reorganize the way that we work in teams so that we're customer focused, we build a new culture of DevOps and code craftsmanship. That sounds like a lot of work. And depending on where you are now, where you're starting from, maybe it is a lot of work. But the good news is that we don't have to wait for the organization to change the way that it builds teams. We can start the cultural change in technology right now. If we do, maybe the business will stop blaming technology for everything that goes wrong and make them look at themselves for improvements. Maybe if we do this and get ourselves and our code to perform as well as we possibly can, it will actually be the catalyst that brings about stronger customer alignment. Maybe then we can finally stop doing Agile and finally start being Agile. And that's the end. Thanks, guys. I caught you out there.
Thanks, Chris. So, any questions? Please raise hands and we will get to you. No questions. At least one. Somebody? Okay, so let's switch to our Menti tool, and we have questions here, do we? No, I guess.
Can I plug the screen?
Yeah, I will switch it.
I'm not going to bite. If you have questions, I won't be offended.
And we have some time, yeah, left. Okay, good. So, any questions? Let's. Oh, I see. One question is there. And it is: business will always blame technology as this is easiest way to cover their flaws. Will it ever work in reality? What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think the business loves to blame technology. I think it's easy for and I don't really know why that is. I think maybe disciplines like marketing, sales, finance, they've been around for a long time. Relatively speaking, technology is quite new. So maybe that's why they like to blame technology, because technology is the new kid in the business, right? And I'm not saying that technology is totally blameless, right? We are a new industry, and there's lots of things that we can learn from ourselves and from other industries. So we do need to improve. But what I see time and again is people applying agile transformation to try to fix problems, and they apply that agile transformation to technology, and there's no acknowledgement that there was any problem at all with the rest of the business. And this is how we end up, just as we were saying in the keynote this morning with water scrum fall. The reason that people do that is because it's easier to point at someone else and say it's their fault than it is to acknowledge your own flaws and to look at yourself, to try to drive improvement, to ask yourself what could you do better. So it is easier to blame technology, and it is a common mistake, I think, that people try to drive improvement through agile transformation, applying an agile framework to technology without considering the rest of the business, because the business is the thing that supplies the product to the customer. It's not just technology. You can't. You have to fix things holistically.
Thanks. Yeah, there is a micro.
So just getting an appendice in this question. So you just mentioned about product delivery teams, so getting people from other areas on board and have like cross-functional teams. So do you think that bringing business people from other areas to these teams would help out this kind of blaming game to finish, or to?
I think it would. I think when teams who are delivering the same product, let's say cross-competency teams, right? So people from IT, people from products, people from marketing and sales. Ultimately, they're there to deliver product to the customer. If they sit together, they're going to have, I would imagine, they're going to have a better understanding of each other's domain and the complexities of that domain than they would if they're sitting on separate floors. Right? If you're working with on a product and the product management for that product are sitting on a different floor, it's not optimal in terms of understanding each other, understanding the requirements, and the same goes for design, for sales. In many companies, the salespeople are the people that have the direct customer contact. The salespeople really are the channel of conversation with the customer. They're the people that go out and sit and talk to the customer about what the customer needs. Really, the people delivering the solution should be as close as possible, I believe, to those salespeople in that example, so that you get as clear a picture as you can about what the customer actually wants.
Great. Another question: how to start clean code culture in developers team practically?
I don't know if any of you were here for the first lecture in this room or the first talk in this room this morning. I think we talked a bit about recruitment. To me, it comes down to educating the developers that you've got currently, creating shared values amongst them, implementing things like code reviews, peer reviews, those kind of things. But also, you can't forget recruitment. It's one thing to foster, to nurture shared values within a team, but then you also need to make sure that anybody else coming into the company has those shared values. I tend to think that developers are pretty good at learning languages. That tends to be what they do. If they're not doing it at work, they're probably doing it at home. They're very good at the technical side. So, but just from a personal point of view, when I'm involved in hiring, I concentrate on the values. I try to establish, what kind of person they are, and whether they're going to help the culture of the team and the technology organization, or whether they're going to be disruptive to that. It's very hard to estimate the cost of poor hiring. You can do a lot of damage with poor hiring choices. And that's not to say that the candidate is bad at what they do. They could be very good at what they do, but if they don't fit in with your culture, the culture of your company, the technology organization, the team that they're going to be working with, it can be disruptive, and it can do a lot of damage. It's very hard to put a cost on that. So, education and recruitment.
Okay, we have another question. Maybe here we have somebody? No? Okay, so how to know I am being agile? Oh, the broad question.
Well, that's difficult. It depends what you like any good architect. I'm going to say it depends. It depends on what you're looking for from agility, and people use that word differently. Today, I was using it in terms of the whole business and the business's ability to deliver flexible, useful, long-lived product. A lot of people talk about agile transformation in terms of the framework that you're using. So it depends on what you mean by agile. I guess, again, Mary Poppendick in one of her books says that we should be aiming to surprise and delight our customers, not just fulfill their basic requirements. So if you're surprising and delighting your customers with your product, then you're probably doing pretty well. I guess SurveyMonkey might help. Does that answer the question? I don't know who asked the question, so
Cool,
I hope that's
thanks.
answered.
Yeah, actually we don't know if it's from internet or from inside. Okay, we have some more questions. Let's move on. Is it possible for IT department to be agile when your business, finances, management is not?
Well, again, it depends what you mean by agile. Is it possible for your IT department, your technology department, to deliver long-lived product that is maintainable through the lifetime of that product and can change and adapt as market conditions change? Yeah, probably is. Is it a lot easier if your business, finance, management are also aligned with that? Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier. Just having everybody using an agile framework, and I guess this is the point of the talk, just using an agile framework doesn't deliver business agility necessarily, right? It might do if you're lucky. You might just kind of stumble on it.
Okay, there is question.
I would like to add to this question another one. If you are in IT or working in Agile and you want to make your business to work in Agile as well, where to start?
Get a new job. The thing that's important, I think, to remember in that situation is that you probably can't do it on your own. What you need to do is educate your peers, is to educate the people that you report to, and to build a network of change agents, people that are going to drive change. Again, try to influence the education, doing brown bag lunches, induction courses, lunch and learn type things, and also the hiring policy. Over time, it takes time, like everything that's worth doing. You can't do it on your own. You need to work with other people, and there needs to be buy-in from at all different levels. So identifying a champion at the kind of management level is always good. Finding someone at the C level who understands the values.
Okay, I see two questions about legacy code. So it's a problem in some company. And
It's a problem
I
in
guess-
every company.
Yeah, a lot of issues about that. So we have a huge legacy code and no time and resources to for rewrite. Yeah, can Agile help here to spread and correct need across company?
Can Agile help here?
Tough one, yeah.
It is a tough one. It is a tough one, yeah. I'd kind of like to think about that and and get
Okay.
back to you.
But then we maybe can another question answer also about legacy code, but what could be the steps towards clean code if you have a lot of of
Okay,
that?
yeah,
It's
I can
more
do that one very
practical
quickly.
and
We're pretty much
easier.
out of time now, so I just the first rule. There's a book called Working with Legacy Code. I'll let you guess what it's about. The first rule of working with legacy code is tests. Don't do anything to your code unless it's well covered by tests. Because the thing is with legacy code, it's in production. And you can't afford to make changes and introduce bugs because that's going to hurt your customer experience. So generally, legacy code isn't as testable. It wasn't perhaps written to be testable in the first place. So writing tests around that code as comprehensive as you can is the first step.